Welcome to the Dial Global Virtual Summit. The panel we are doing today is entitled 2021 Trends, Authentic Leadership, and Celebrating Your Unique Superpowers. My name is Sandy Gould. I'm the Vice President of Talent for Verizon Media. Today, I'm joined by some incredibly inspirational leaders on this panel to talk about celebrating those superpowers and authentic leadership and how it supports that. I'm really delighted to welcome you all to the Dial virtual stage. I'm joined today by Kristen Anderson, Chief Diversity Officer at Barilla, Amina Folarin, Chief Inclusion Officer of Oliver, and Adrianne Smith, Global Director of Inclusion and Diversity at WPP. So we know that everyone has their own unique superpowers and their own unique mission in life, purpose that they're here to fulfill and help us achieve as a global community. Today, we're going to hear from this panel as they share what their organizations do to identify talent, amazing diverse talent and their superpowers, what they do to celebrate that talent and to unlock their potential. We're also going to find out about the importance of authentic leadership in helping to unleash those superpowers and to amplify and advance what people are capable of, especially when they come together and bring their difference together.
Okay, so, I think my superpower actually shifts and morphs. So I may be really, powerful when it comes to it. So
I believe it.
My superpower right now is that I am resilient, right? Mm-hmm. And I think resilience I've had to be, especially in this year, and I'll reflect upon this year of 2020 and COVID and, the social unrest in the US is because, and especially being in this position as a global D&I leader, you have to be prepared and ready to move and pivot. So, you have to just dodge and pass these bullets so that you can actually continue. So being able to take some blows, being able to step back and still be strong to continue to move forward has been critical, and resilience has, I think held me together. And there's a saying that in some, churches, we talk about being religious, that when people get up and they want to do, they're making their testimonies, they say, "Thank God I don't look like what I've been through." So
I love that.
From the looks of it, you would think, oh, everything is great, but you just know that we've been pivoting, we've been dodging, we've been very resilient.
Yeah.
And these times, I think that we've just recently gone through, and we're still continuing to go through, has reinforced that resilience and ability to be able to pivot.
So I would say, especially in this period, that I have maybe a power, I don't want to call it a superpower, to be empathetic, because I think really what people need now and throughout 2020 was someone who could be in their shoes, sit in their seat, understand the experiences that they're having, the difficulties they're having, the issues with mental health, the issues with COVID itself and the uncertainty and the stress, the anxiety surrounding that we all have a certain level of this. And because of my 25 years, maybe living in other cultures and learning languages and trying to understand, the positions of my colleagues and trying not to stereotype and judge others and to really more get into their experience and understand where they're coming from, maybe I've developed a bit of a skill in empathy. And I think going forward, people are going to look for empathetic leaders. They're going to look, we talked about authenticity, of course, and I know we'll talk more about that later, but also empathetic and authentic leaders is what the world needs more of. And I think what people are looking for in this period and going forward to lead them in companies and lead them in society.
I think, being a Black woman who, from a very determined, powerful, long line of other Black women before me, my mom, my grandma, aunties, all played a really big part in my upbringing. So I think kind of that difference of being, I always have been one of the few Black people in my space, in the corporate space, not as many Black women as there should be within HR. So I think they just taught me that you belong, you have the right to be there. And I think just remembering that and kind of, even though I look different, sounded different, had a different culture. I think I just took that power from knowing that I can belong anywhere and I have a right to be there. And I think that just kind of always gives me the kind of power to like continue and to just keep opening those spaces. I guess I keep going back to that, to create those spaces where other people can belong. So I think the difference in my upbringing in comparison to the peers and people I've worked with really kind of gives me that power, and the family networks, really, I think.
Yes. I love the way you painted the portrait of the lineage and the legacies and power that come from that. It always makes me think that we don't realize how much we're time traveling all the time, because you're constantly engaging the history of the people and the family before you and learning from them live and learning from them historically as well, right? And benefiting or participating in that experience. But so I love that. I love that strength. I also love something you called out, which is there is a very evident superpower about people who are diverse that is not often appreciated by many people, which is every day you have to really fight and assert your identity. And that is something that some people have an opportunity not to do. Some people don't. Some people have to make a decision. Will I fight to assert my identity in a place where I may not be surrounded by people who seem or look like me, right? And that takes quite a bit of strength. It then also provides you with an awareness that you have quite a bit of strength, as you both have and received from your family before you. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I think that's, it's very telling, and it's very much, it's part of your operating system. And so I think that's profound.
But the inclusion, and when people, are used to breaking patterns, I'm all about disrupting, a system. And I think that's one of my kind of, if I think about a power word, I'm a disruptor, or I like to disrupt. And it's really, that's the way you're going to affect some change, right? The theory that people have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. If we're going to kind of reach those points of true change and making a difference in this journey of inclusion and diversity, which, means also we have to make people feel like they belong too. Like that's the next thing. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is a part of it. And I think, one of the things that I've learned in this journey and in this space of being at WPP is that with a global organization, what happened in the US made a lot of people feel like they didn't belong because they didn't identify with what was happening here as it related to the racial and social injustice that was happening here. So we had to start thinking really critically about how can we support these other regions who definitely felt like we need to act now so that the same thing doesn't happen, and how can we sort of bring our people together and making sure that we don't have the same issues. We have to be included. We have to understand, but learning from the US is a foundational piece. So even though you could say it's not about me, that's not happening in my region, this is a learning opportunity. And so watching this disruption, allows us to be able to, be resilient and, think about how we can pivot and change the conversations and make people think differently by providing them with the foundation of learning, so that we can make sure that these things don't happen in our areas. We can still create areas of belonging for people so they feel powerful, and the psychological safety that they have of wondering what could happen if this happens, or if I don't belong here, where can I go? Like I said, you just made my mind go to so many different places, but it's a matter of, embracing that disruption and embracing the opportunity to change and become better. And I think your original question was, how has your superpower made a difference? I think my ability to make people have, feel at ease in terms of providing them foundational learning about what's happening and how they can take these lessons to implement them in their region so it relates to them. So I think, we have so many opportunities here to just continue this journey of making differences and have a disruptive nature to get to affect some change.
As you might know, and I think if you're in America, you know the Barilla brand, but really most of our sales are in Europe. So we're really have a big presence, of course, in Italy, but we have plants in Russia and Turkey, France, Germany. So we have a global presence. And so how do we encourage our people to be their authentic selves at work everywhere in the world, considering the cultural context of bringing your real self to work can be scary in some places to open up. And so really we focused heavily on opening up safe environments with via what we call employee resource groups or employee networks. So we've really focused a lot of energy, and our employees have been very motivated to form these groups. I think you know very well the study that shows that you lose 50% of your productivity if you have to cover. If you have to cover your authentic self every week, I mean, try it. Try it for 1 week, not to say anything about your partner, your personal life. It's hugely tiring. So this is not only to allow people to bring them their own self, their authentic selves to work, their real selves to work, but it's also for business and employee motivation. So in terms of creating safe spaces, we basically educated employees on employee resource groups or employee networks that they formed. And we have a certain governance and approval and, sponsors and co-leaders. And these groups raise the awareness, bring the invisible needs of a minority or underrepresented group to the majority, kind of the voice of those groups. And we have groups that are for increasing inclusion of people with disability or inclusion of people of the LGBT community or different generations, gender and work-life balance, and also, to increase the generation, I already said generations, and multiculturality. So again, and what happens is that once these groups form, people join them as allies. So we really focus not only as a member of the community, but as an ally.
Right.
So join this group to help the invisible needs of the minority be visible to the majority, to open the culture, and most 100% joined as allies. But then what happens is these groups get bigger and bigger. The environment becomes safe for people to start sharing. And talking about, I'm getting married to my partner in Italy next week. And then there's a party and there's some celebration. And then the environment opens up and they start talking at work about and so it becomes, the safe environment expands. And of course you need to do this in a different way when you're forming a group in Russia than you might in Italy versus America. And I'll tell you a very quick story. I mean, we have one person in Italy. Of all of our employees, we didn't have anyone who was openly LGBT. And we formed Voce. The employees formed Voce, which is our biggest ERG. Voce means voice in Italian. It's for LGBT inclusion. And Gabriele told everyone he's getting married in Voce to his partner. And then we had a big event, 300 people, 400 people in our cafeteria with our chairman, the three Barilla brothers, and the CEO. And we talked about the value of being an ally. And in that setting, Gabriele decided to come out and tell everyone his story. And I remember this one line. He said, now, on the way to work, when I commute every morning, on a Monday morning, I don't have to think of the story I'm going to tell my colleagues about what I did over the weekend and the make-believe things I'm going to make up. I can sit there thinking about the business problems that I'm going to solve at work. And to me, that was the whole piece of having authentic leadership, authentic people, and a self space to be yourself at work.